So our next speaker is Brother Ali Al-Najjar. Ali Al-Najjar shines as one of the youngest yet most prominent lecturers in the West. He has lectured worldwide in countries including Africa, UK, Canada, Iraq, and the majority of United States of America, some of which include Miami, New York, New Jersey, California, Boston, Ohio, Denver, Houston, New Orleans, and Maryland. He comes from a lineage well known for its deeply rooted presence in Islamic sciences and jurisprudence, as he is the son of Sheikh Husham Al-Husseini, the director and founder of Karbala Islamic Education Center, one of the earliest Islamic centers established in the West, and the great-grandson of the late Muhammad Ali Al-Najjar, the engineer and constructor behind the mausoleum of the 7th Imam Musa al-Qadhi. Ali Al-Najjar began his public career from his childhood as he grew. Ali Al-Najjar began his public career from his childhood as he grew up in Dearborn, Michigan, amongst many prestigious and scholarly figures while studying under numerous scholars and lecturers. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Brother Ali Al-Najjar.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
आवाज़ बुलंद नारे सलवात
الحمد لله الذي أنزل الفرقان على عبده ليكون للعالمين نذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا والصلاة والسلام على من أذهب عنه الرجس أهل البيت وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الدين عند الله الإسلام. Respected brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Just as there are a number of differences between the three divine religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, the number of similarities reach an equal amount, if not greater than it. Because within the religion of Islam, we hold the belief that the three divine religions, being Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, are the only three prominent religions in the world today that have roots of divinity. All other 18 major religions or movements in the world today, such as Shintoism, Taoism, Baha'ism, Sikhism, even Buddhism, and the Rastafarian movement, are religions which hold roots created by man. And that's why if you were to read the Holy Quran in regards to the name Christianity and to the name Islam or to the name Judaism, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it very clear that they're simply names which the people of the times came forward with and not names that Allah sent to mankind. The verse that I began with, Allah says, إِنَّ الدِّينَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ الْإِسْلَامِ. The religion of Allah is Islam. Because when Allah comes forward in chapter 53 of the Holy Quran, verse number 24, it says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, speaking about Ibrahim alayhi salam and his contribution to bringing forward the name Islam. Allah says, مِلَّةَ أَبِيكُمْ إِبْرَاهِيمُ هُوَ سَمَّاكُمُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِ وَفِي هَذَا. Allah says, it's the custom and the religion of your father Abraham. هُوَ الَّذِي هُوَ سَمَّاكُمُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Allah says, He is the one who named you Muslims Furthermore, Allah makes it very clear that Ibrahim was neither a Jew nor was he a Christian. When Allah says, مَا كَانَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ يَهُودِيًّا وَلَا نَصْرَانِيًّا وَلَكِنْ كَانَ حَنِيفًا مُسْلِمًا وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Allah says Ibrahim, neither was he a Jew nor was he a Christian. Rather, he was an upright Muslim, and nor was he from the polytheists. Furthermore, Allah mentions a third verse just to re-establish and reaffirm this concept when he mentions saying that the idols in the time of Jahiliyyah were named by the people who worshipped them. Now, just like the people in Jahiliyyah named their idols such as Lat and Uzza and Mana, the names Christianity and Judaism are simply names which the people of the time brought forward. That's why when Allah speaks about the idols of the people of Jahiliyyah, what does He say? He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, إِنْ هِيَ إِلَّا أَسْمَاءٌ سَمَّيْتُمُوهَا أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ. Allah says they're nothing but names that you and your forefathers brought forward. That's why if you look at the three religions, you'll see their blueprint is extremely similar. And the construction and the realm of their nature is very similar to one another. For example, all three divine religions believe that they descend back to Ishaq or Ismail. Both of them who ultimately go back to Ibrahim alayhi salam, which is seen as the patriarch of the three religions. All three religions attest to the unicity of God and the oneness of Allah. Even though religions may come forward and present complex philosophies to the oneness of their God, ultimately all three religions believe in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On a third level, all three religions believe in a day where your actions will be judged. And the good that you did and the bad that you did will be judged for, which is known as Day of Judgment. All three religions believe in men sent by God to establish His mission and to actualize His tenets, known as prophets. And all three religions believe in a field which is very much prominent in the religion, which is known as eschatology. Eschatology is a Western term which refers to Jewish, Christian, and Muslim belief in life after death, in religious jurisdiction, the Day of Judgment, and also belief in the Messianic era. The Messianic era is defined as the belief in a Messiah, an era which will be established by the Messiah that will come, sent by God. The Jews, for example, believe in the Mashiach being a Messiah who descends from the Davidic line, a Jewish king who descends from David. The Christians come forward and believe in the second coming of Jesus, son of Mary, Isa, salamullahi alayhi. And the Muslims, like the rest of the religions, believe in the coming of the awaited Mahdi, ajalallahu ta'ala farajuhu sharif. Now, one concept that's very interesting that all three religions believe in is a battle which will come at the end of time, typically referred to as Armageddon. You see, because ever since the beginning of time, good and evil have been going head to head. In every time there has been a man who manifested the power of good, and in every time there has been a man who manifested the power of evil. For example, in the time of Habil, you had Qabil. In the time of Ibrahim, you had Namrud. In the time of Musa, you had Fir'aun. In the time of Isa, you had the Jews of the time. In the time of the Holy Prophet, you had Abu Sufyan. In the time of Ali, you had Muawiyah. In the time of Hassan, you had Muawiyah as well. In the time of Abu Abdullah Hussein, you had Yazid. In the time of Zayn al-Abidin, you had Walid. In the time of Imam Baqir alayhi salam, you had Hisham ibn Abd al-Malik. In the time of Imam Salih, you had Mansur al-Dawaniq. In the time of Imam Kab, you had Harun al-Rashid. In the time of Imam alayhi salam, you had Mahmoud. And so on and so forth. The idea, I think, is clear that every time you had a man who manifested good, just as there was a man who manifested evil. Now see, many times we study the nature of good and evil. We study the men who represented good and evil. But very rarely do we study where the two will eventually meet for their last time. And this is known as Armageddon. Armageddon has a number of dimensions which it can be looked through. For example, the etymological dimension, meaning through its exact word. The word Armageddon comes from the Hebrew word Harmageddo, which means the Mount of Megiddo. Today the word Armageddon has become a byword for events which will unfold at the end of time. Now geographically, Armageddon today is a place in modern day Israel, 30 kilometers northeast of Haifa. This land is actually a tell. It's not a mount. Har means mount, but in essence, the actual piece of land is not a mountain, it's a tell, which was created due to the constant generations who built their establishments upon that land, and gathered and stuck up one upon another until it became an actual tell. Now, when you look at the actual land historically, you'll see that a number of battles took place on this land throughout history. For example, in the 15th century BC, you had a battle on that land known as Armageddon between the Egyptian king Thutmose III versus the king Kudish and the two kings of Megiddo. In the year 609 BC, you had a battle also between the Egyptian forces against the Canaanite Empire led by the king of that time, who was known as King Judah. And then in 1918, you also had a battle between which took place in World War II, which was a battle between the West, led by General Edward Allenby, against the defending Ottoman Empire. So you see that many historical battles took place on this land, and for that reason, a number of prominent figures went and visited that land. For example, you have Pope VI in 1964. He went and he visited this land, and he met with a number of Israeli prominent figures. Now, Armageddon isn't important because of its etymological dimension, or because of its historical dimension, or even because of its geographical dimension. No. It's important because of its theological importance within the three divine religions. Today in Christianity, the term Armageddon has been mentioned once in the Old Testament, and 12 times in the Old Testament, and once in the New Testament. Now, of course, the word Armageddon, when it was mentioned within the Old Testament, none of them had specific affiliations or correlations between them and apocalyptic belief. Yet the reason why many Christians come and take the term Armageddon and they connect it with apocalyptic beliefs is because of chapter 16, verse number 16 within the book of Revelation, within the New Testament. The verse comes in and says, "And gather your men to a place which in Hebrew is Armageddon." This is where? Within the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation is what? Book of Revelation is the last chapter within the New Testament. The reason why they named it the book of Revelation is because the first word within that chapter is apocalypse. Apocalypse means to reveal, to uncover something. Therefore, they named that chapter the book of Revelation. There is no chapter within Christianity that speaks about apocalyptic prophecies as much as the book of Revelation does. Now, who's the author of the book of Revelation? One day there was a man by the name of John of Patmos. He was sitting in an area which is referred to as the Aegean, which is today the lands between Greece and Turkey. He's sitting on this land, and he hears a voice coming to him, telling him, "What thou seest, write in a book." So John is sitting down. He takes a paper, he takes a pencil, and begins to write revelations and prophecies which begin to reveal to him through Jesus Christ, Jesus, son of Mary. Now, what prophecies did he write? He wrote down 7 sections, each section which has 7 segments. For example, the 7 seals, the 7 bowls, the 7 plagues, the 7 words that will lead to the fall of Babylon. For example, furthermore, he speaks about the 7 visions and the 7 final visions. 7 sections, each one of them, which is categorized into 7 different sections. Within the book of Revelation, the term prophet, prophecy, and prophesizing are mentioned 21 times. No book within Christianity mentions these terms as much as the book of Revelation does. Now, when we look at the chapter of the 7 bowls or the 7 plagues, there's a verse within it which is chapter 16, verse number 16, which I mentioned previously, which says what? It says, "And you gather your men to a land," which in Hebrew is referred to as Armageddon. The Christians come, they take this verse, and they say, here it is. This is very clear that the last battle will take place in Israel, in a land known as Armageddon. But many Christians tend to come and disagree with the fact that Armageddon is a place in Israel. Why? Because some people take the verse literal and some take it symbolic, just as within the Holy Quran. Those who come and do tafsir to the book, you have the Batinites, for example, who simply look at the esoteric dimension of religion, and then you have the Wahhabites, who simply look at the exoteric, meaning the outer dimensions of religion. And then you have the Wahhabis who do their own thing. So I mean, there is a very interesting way that people tend to do tafsir of the Bible, just as there are within the Holy Quran. There are 4 different approaches that Christians take to doing tafsir to their Bible. Number 1, you have the historicists. Historicists are a group of people that come and say anything that the Bible refers to could be connected with a specific event in history that took place, either in the past or in the present. And this was very popular in the 18th century when the Protestant historicist paradigm came and connected the Antichrist within the Bible with the Pope of the time. Now, of course, not too many people today will come and tell you that the Pope is the Antichrist, but this was a very popularized notion in the 18th century. You have number 1, the historicists. Number 2, you have the pretists, or the pretists, yes, the pretists. Pretists come and say what? They come and say anything that the Bible speaks about, prophesizing, for example, the book of Revelation, is referring to an event that took place after the fall of the Roman Empire. Therefore, for the Bible to come and say that Armageddon is in the future makes no sense, according to the pretists, because everything that took place is after the fall of the Roman Empire. Number 2. Number 3, you have the futurists, who come and say the exact opposite. Not is everything connected with the event of the past, but everything is connected to event of the future, hence the name futurists. And then number 4, you have the idealists. Idealists come and say what? They come and say that everything within the Bible isn't a literal event. It's not really happening. It's some symbolic way of the Bible referring to the spiritual war between good and evil. Today, Christianity doesn't affiliate themselves with any of these 4 views, being the pretists, the futurists, the idealists, and the historicists. They say each one of these groups has some truth to them. Therefore, we cannot simply come and neglect any of them, and neither can we accept any of them. We have to take some from each group and combine it together. That's why today the majority of Christians have a combination between the futurists and between the predispensationalist theory within Christianity interpretation. They come and say, yes, some events may be referring to the future, just as some events may be referring to a symbolic nature, which the predispensationalists refer to. Now, when you look at the Christian belief, they come and say that Armageddon, as mentioned within chapter 16, verse number 16, and also they combine this verse, by the way, with another verse, chapter 16, verse number 14, within the book of Revelation, that speaks to the prophet speaks to John, telling him, and combine all of your men to a day where the rulers would gather and fight against the Lord. Christians come and say that the final battle isn't going to be good against evil. No. It's going to be Christians versus non-Christians. And this is a very important point. For them to say that the battle is simply Christians versus non-Christians, you have just exclusivized the message of Jesus Christ, and you have just cocooned the message of the Bible. The interesting point is that each religion, Judaism and Christianity, come and say that the final battle isn't going to be ultimate good against ultimate evil. It's going to be Christians against non-Christians. The Jews come and say what? It's going to be the Jews versus the Gentiles. Today, Armageddon, or the events of the end of day within Judaism, are referred to as Akharat Hayam. Hebrew word Akharat Hayam, which refer to the events of the end of time. Furthermore, the Jews come and give you the prophecy of Ezekiel, chapter 38, verses 1 through 6, specifically chapter 5, or verse number 5 within that chapter. It mentions to you 6 specific countries who will fight Israel at the end of time. You see, because the Christians come and say it's going to take place in Israel, but it's not necessarily going to be against Israel. The Jews, on the other hand, come and say it's going to be in Israel, and the whole world is going to be uniting against Israel. What are the 6 countries? Number 1, they mention the Prince of Rosh, which some people come and say that refers to Russia. Others mention Tabul, which is also mentioned, or Tobal, which is mentioned within the prophecy of Ezekiel chapter 38, which some connect with Tunisia. And the Bible, that verse mentions Mashah, which some connect with Moscow. Yet the Bible mentions other verses and other countries in a more specific matter. For example, it mentions Ethiopia by name, it mentions Libya by name, and it mentions Persia. Ironically, right? Persia and Israel. So they mention it very clearly within the Bible as to the countries who will be fighting against Israel. Now the Jews, they come and they say, as mentioned within also the chapter of Numbers, verse 24, chapter 24 as well, it mentions exactly what's going to happen. The Messiah or the Mashiach from the Davidic line is going to come at the end of time, and he's going to establish the teachings of the Torah. Meaning he's going to take the tenets of Judaism and he's going to actualize them in the form of a government. Now somebody may come and ask a very fundamental question, which leads us to the crux of the presentation. Christianity mentions that the final battle is going to be what? Christians versus non-Christians. The Jews come and mention that the final battle is going to be Jews versus Gentiles, or other than Jews, Gentiles. Islam doesn't come and say that the final battle is going to be Muslims against non-Muslims. No. Notice the universality of the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah doesn't come and say that it's going to be Muslims against non-Muslims. It's going to be followers of Muhammad versus the enemies of Muhammad. No. Islam is the only religion in the world that comes and says, from the side of the enemies you may have Muslims, and from the side of warriors you may have non-Muslims. What do I mean? Chapter 28 of the Holy Quran, verse number 5. What does Allah say? Allah says, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلَهُم الْوَارِثِينَ. Allah says, and we want to inherit the world through Imam Mahdi, which Tafsir come and mention. To who? To the Arabs? No. To the Muslims? No. To the Shia, Ali ibn Abi Talib? No. To the Iraqis? To the Persians? To the... No. وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. We want to give the world to those who are oppressed. Meaning what? Be you a Jew, under the context that you're oppressed, you'll be fighting with Sahib al-Zaman. Be you a Christian, under the context that you're oppressed, you'll be fighting with Sahib al-Zaman. And that's why many ahadith make it very clear that the army of Imam Mahdi alayhi salam is going to have Christians, going to have Jews, and it's even going to have people from other religions, Zoroastrians and what have you. And really, if somebody comes and says, brother, I don't believe that, Karbala is the best of examples. Karbala had a number of non-Muslims which fought with Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. And really, if you want to speak further about the comparison between Armageddon and Karbala, Karbala was simply a preparation and fuel for the event of Armageddon. What Abu Abdullah al-Hussein did on the 10th of Muharram, he was simply paving the path for Imam Sahib al-Zaman. That's why when our 12th Imam comes at the end of time, where is he going to go? He's going to go to Mecca. Then he's going to Karbala, and then he's going to go to Jerusalem. Notice, Armageddon, right? Jerusalem. Yet when he goes to Karbala, he's going to be mentioning one slogan, and one slogan only. He's going to be saying, "La ya ditharat, jaddi al-Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib." He's going to say, "Oh, for the revenge of Hussein, son of Ali ibn Abi Talib, I have come." Meaning there's a very strong comparison between Armageddon and between the events of Karbala. Karbala is a beautiful example why many Christians fought with Imam Hussein alayhi salam on the 10th of Muharram. Primarily the famous name Wahab ibn Abdullah al-Kalbi. Wahab was this Christian man who was walking with his mother and with his wife. And coincidentally they passed by the lands of Karbala. They saw in this land a man by the name of Hussein. And they saw a nude emitting from his face. He said, let me see what this man is doing. They say that Wahab would go to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He would tell him, who are you? He would say, I am Wahab. Or he would say, I am Hussein, the son of Ali, and I am here to establish the teachings of Islam. He would tell him, I don't believe you. Some Ahadith say that he would perform some miracles. He would perform miracles. He would be intrigued by the miracles and he would begin to believe in him. Wahab, some Ahadith, or some people tend to come and say he became a Muslim. Wahab didn't become a Muslim. Wahab stayed a Christian. He fought as a Christian and he died as a Christian under the banner of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Notice Wahab was fighting. Umar ibn Sa'ad commands that the head of Wahab is decapitated. They would cut the head of Wahab and they would throw it to his mother, Wahab, saying, you wanted your son to fight for Hussein, this is the result of your son, Wahab. They would take that, they would throw it to Wahab. Notice the devotion of a Christian lady towards the message of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Why? Because Imam al-Hussein didn't exclusivize his message. He didn't make it look as if it was only for Allah, or for the Muslim context of Allah and for the Prophet. No. He made it clear that the message of Allah is a universal message. Notice, they take the head, they would throw it back to Wahab. Wahab would take the head and she would throw it back to him. She would say, I gave this head for the son of Fatima. And if I had 10 sons who died for Abu Abdullah, I would feel as if I need to give more for the son of Fatima to Zahra. That you see, she noticed that the message was universal. That when people come and say that Islam is a religion of exclusivity, we need to be able to disprove this. Islam is the most universal religion out there. And this is the reason why the world tends to come forward and attack the religion of Islam. You'll find, for example, what? Within the Holy Quran, the word Muhammad is mentioned only 4 times, whereas the term Jesus is mentioned over, as some people say, 28 times. Or the word Moses is mentioned 133 times. Muhammad, as we believe, is seen as the crux of the religion of Islam. Yet Allah chose not to mention his name a number of times to show the universality of the religion of Islam. Furthermore, today you examine any religion in the world. Each religion affiliates themselves to a specific individual. For example, Zoroastrianism connected to Zoroastra, Buddhism connected to Buddha, Christianity connected to Christ, Judaism connected to Judah. Us as Muslims, are we known as Muhammadans? No. Is our religion Muhammad's? And do you know how long they tried to tend to change the name of the religion of Islam to make it look as if it was Muhammadism? Today read history, and you'll see, for example, some people will come forward and speak about Islam. They say the religion of Muhammadism says this. For years they tried. Why? Because if an alien was to come out from outer space and see the term Christianity, and see the term Judaism, and see the term Islam, you'd see that Islam off the bat has an advantage. Therefore, they tried to manipulate the word Islam into the word Muhammadism. We aren't Muhammadans. Why? Because Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is simply seen as a conduit to the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just as Jesus was, just as Moses was, and just as Ibrahim salamullahi alayhi was. Furthermore, when Allah speaks about the Christians and the Jews within the Holy Quran, He speaks about them in such respect and in such reverence. He doesn't defame them. He doesn't speak against them. Rather, He puts them on a high pedestal. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made very clear that the religion of Islam is a universal message. That's why when me as a Muslim, I see that the world is defaming the religion of Islam, blaming us for the Woolwich killings, blaming us for the Boston Marathon, blaming us for 9/11, blaming us for being ones who want to infiltrate American society and establish mosques next to Ground Zero, and what have you, and so on and so forth until the end. You find many of these arguments come forward. Me as a Muslim, should I be angered by what's happening in the world today? No. I should be happy. Because this should send me a profound message telling me that the world recognizes the greatness of Islam, and for that reason, they chose to attack it. Just like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that in Allah إِذَا أَحَبَّ عَبْدٍ ابْتَلَاهُ, when Allah loves a servant, He chooses to test him. Meaning the more difficult your situation is, the closer you should think of yourself as being to Allah. Islam really falls under the same exact category. When I see the world attacking Islam, I should be happy, because they've recognized how great of a religion the religion of Islam is. Therefore, when we speak about Armageddon, through Armageddon, I can send a message to the world to tell them what? To tell them that Islam doesn't think that it should be Christianity versus Islam. Neither should it be Islam versus Judaism. Because the Christians come and say that the Messiah is only going to come and save the Christians. The Jews come and say that the Messiah coming will only save the Jews. But the Muslims come and say that Imam Sahib al-Zaman will come and he'll fight for the Christian, he'll fight for the Jew, and he'll fight for anybody under the context that he's a Muslim. Therefore, when I speak about Armageddon in conclusion, the message that should be sent out is that it shouldn't be Islam versus other religions. It should be the good of all religions united against the evil of the world. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to be ones who take advantage of being the Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And just like that Christian poet comes and says, if a Shi'i is somebody who respects the values of justice, he respects the values of integrity and equalness, then I may be a Christian, but in essence, I'm a Shi'i. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله وتذل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك، وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. Let us raise our hands, brothers and sisters, and recite our Hajj all together with the loudest of our voices. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه